Hey guys, sorry, I'm gonna skip repeat, not officially. I just can't do it on this video. I still testing it out, but I will be covering pulse and delay off. These two functions are pretty useful, but I don't use them often. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I haven't come across a game where I officially need it. I just use it here and there. It's really neat. I like the idea, and I figured out something new while playing with pulse. There's been updates to these functions, which is I'm glad I've been doing these tutorials again because I learned something new. But let me go over pulse real quick. I'll be going over both of these. Hopefully I don't take too long. Pulse. Basically, when you, the user, activates the button that has this function on, it kind of holds it for you. By default, it's 100 milliseconds. So it's really quick. You're not even going to notice it. So it's kind of suggested that you actually put your own timer on it, and that is called a parameter. So as you can see the example, it says pulse 1500. So if the function has it at pulse 1500 and I click on it, it activates the button for 1.5 milliseconds. No, 1.5 seconds. And then it turns off. So it's like a heartbeat. But now there's a second parameter, and I didn't know about this till I messed with it. And the example for this one is called Pulse 52. And it says it will double tap the button. So if we go to my examples, I have a couple sections here. Let me just go over it. So here's my controller. You can see anything that I do. Let's start with line 29 on the green line. It says Pulse 1000, which is normally what I use it for. So what it does, if I center sip it, it activates the square button or the X button on the Xbox for 1 second, then it turns off. So here it is. When it activates, it holds it for me, then it turns it off. The good part about Pulse is it works. It works as intended. I click it, it activates, it turns off. I click it, it activates, it turns off. The problem with it is you can't turn it off by yourself. There's no way. If I center sip it and center sip it again, it's not like the toggle function to where it turns off. I just realized I'm not facing the camera. But the only way to turn it off is either you change modes where it doesn't have pulse, or the second way is you use force offs. I know I still haven't covered it. I should have covered it by now, but I will get to it. It's not that complicated. It pretty much does what it says. It turns off the button that it's located on, and I will cover it again in a little bit. So that's the only downside of pulse. It's you need a force off to turn it off if your timer is too high. So if I put time like pulse 10,000 and I don't put any force offs, it won't turn off till it reaches 10,000 milliseconds, which is 10 seconds, which is way too long. It can mess up your gameplay. So force off fixes that problem, and they work hand in hand. It's pretty neat. So just one more time, let me cover X before I move on. If I center sip it, it activates square X for 1 second, turns off. The second parameter, we're going to be looking at lines 32. It says pulse 52. So the way I read it is pulse activates 2 times for 50 milliseconds. So I will write it down on somewhere how it actually reads. But essentially it double taps it. Here's an example. If I click lip, you should see it flicker twice really fast and turn off. Because once it finishes its commands, it turns off. You basically tell it to pulsate twice, and once it's finished, to turn off. And that's pretty much it. I don't really use this until now. So I might be doing this if I'm super lazy, who knows. But pulse is secretly a repeat function on a toggle. So I know I haven't covered repeat, and I spelled it wrong on here, but repeat is a turbo button. It's basically any game that has to use mash on certain things. It's going to need a turbo. So a repeat function, it does all the work for you. It basically repeats as fast as you want it, as much as you want. But the problem with that is you have to hold it. In this example, I'm making a repeat function as a toggle. So enough of me talking about it. Let me just show you what it is. It is beautiful. Oh, I love this. It's kind of hard to explain it when I haven't covered the function. But so I put y pulsates y pulsates 20,000 times 60 millisecond intervals. That's about between 10 to 20 seconds of pure repeat function. And here's an example of it. You should see it flicker uncontrollably on its own. I don't have to do anything. It is beautiful. Oh, I like it. And the thing is, it's not going to stop until it finishes the 20,000 cycles of pulse at 60 milliseconds. And the thing is, I can't turn it off unless I use force off. It's a little buggy turning off, but it's 90% of the time you're not going to have the bug. All you got to do is mash the button anyway. So to turn it off, if it hasn't turned off already, I would either have to click anything below it. So lines 34 and below, either I have to center sip it, lip it, left center sip it. It doesn't matter. All those buttons that have force off on it will turn off Y. So here's an example of that. Let me refresh it. So I should have repeated the function of, I call it a secret toggle. No, my bad. I'll call it super pulse. So super pulse should be activated right now. And if I center puff it again, all I did was refresh it. If I center puff it while it's still pulsating, it's just going to refresh the timer. So basically, I'm putting it as an infinite loop. And if I want to turn it off, I'm going to center sip it. It should have turned off by now. I really hope it did, because I don't want to record this again. If I center puff it again, it should repeat the cycle all over again. Now, if I click lip, just like you learned in the normal function video, lip is assigned to line 32 and it's assigned to line 36. So what it's going to do is it's going to turn off the pulse function for Y, but it's going to activate also A. So let me just show you real quick. If I click lip, you should see the A button pulsate. So that's pretty much it. These are the rules for pulse. And I'm pretty happy that I learned these 3 rules. Let me just show you examples. I don't really use them, but like I said, for Dying Light, I do look back to in Dying Light, there's basically a technique where if you're running and you click Y or triangle, it looks back so you can either kill a zombie behind you or just to see what's behind you and chasing you. So this is where I use pulse. If I'm running, I would pulsate it and then continue running without me doing any of the work after that. So here should be an example of it. Assassin's Creed Origin, I put it as pulse 1200. It should be on the purple line. Basically, there's a technique in Assassin's Creed where you can scan the area. And this just helps me not do the work, because I don't like holding buttons. And also, I don't want to toggle it or delay latch it, because then I need force offs. This one turns on for easy 1.2 seconds, and then it turns off. So it's no big deal. I also use it for emotes on Killing Floor 2. Actually, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's pretty much all I use it for. My next video is going to be covering delay off. I know I said I'll combine it all, but I've been talking about pulse for a good 7-10 minutes. I don't want to make this longer than it needs to be. So delay off is pretty simple, just like pulse. It doesn't have many uses, but it does come in handy. Catch you on the next one. I know I babbled a lot, but I was pretty excited to find this super repeat that is just beautiful. Take care, guys.